Another week, another hill climb video, but I just wanted to put a little bit of footage in the intro of how beautiful it can be riding on these crisp, clear winter mornings. Yes, that frost is a little bit disconcerting, but that boardwalk has so much grip on it that it wasn't worrying at all. And yes, I couldn't feel my hands and feet, but it's just so beautiful looking over the frozen estuary in that like golden morning sunlight. You can't help but enjoy it. So I hope you enjoy another hill climb video, but look at that cycle path. Good morning, just in the little town of Bagillt. I think it's Welsh double L, Bagillt to all the Welsh, all the English people who cycle around here. This is just the main coast road in North Wales. I'm going to do a climb that's not particularly famous or well known. I've just picked it out on Strava, but behind me is a range of hills. We're right at sea level by the Dee estuary, so it's just a back road that goes all the way up, has a flat in the middle and gets up to Pentrahulkin at the top. I don't know anything about it, so we'll see how it goes, but I'm gonna basically go all out on the first 6 to 7 minute segment and then just see what I can hold for the rest. So yeah, straight into the content here. This is a climb with loads and loads of turns, but it's about 250 meters of elevation. Average is 5%, but for most of the duration of the climbing sections, you're looking at like 8-9%. So you'll see here, this is the first part, the completely uphill part, which is roughly 6 to 7 minutes, around 8%. So it's very tough start to a climb, but it's nothing stupid. It's not like Nick Brownbill 20% road sort of climb. And the way I wanted to approach this today was to go absolutely full gas up that section and then take the turn that goes sort of downhill and then wiggles back uphill, basically as fast as I could. The reason I wanted to do that for my own mentality is that often I let myself off the hook by saying, because it's a long climb, and this segment that I showed you would be about 15 minutes. I go too easy, and it's hard. It's still hard if you do 95% threshold, but you probably could do 100% threshold for 15 minutes, and it would be similarly tough. So I'm trying to convince myself to push harder, and then the second half where it goes flat, then downhill, then back uphill, I'm almost saying, well, that doesn't matter, I just go as hard as I can. But for the first straight climb, absolutely full gas, I want to be knackered at the top. This climb started quite gently. You saw me roll through the little village of Bagillt. I'm going to say that as little as possible, by the way. The Welsh, the like double L sound is a shl, which is almost like CL, followed by a T. So that's 3 consecutive consonants to get my English palate around. I really struggle. Yeah, it's a relatively false flat, almost like 2-3% for a few hundred meters, and then it rears up. And I think it averages 10-ish% for a long part of this, which is, meaty enough to really get my teeth into. My aim was to try and stay seated again, much like I told you guys last week on London Bridge. I was going to try and spin-ish, stay seated. Okay, I'm doing 60 to 70 RPM. That's spinning for me up a climb. It's not 45 mashing. And it does get properly steep in places. Pretty sure I've just got out the saddle there. And I need that for the way I climb. I do get up and out the saddle for a little bit, sit down for a bit, just alternate positions to keep the power coming. And I was trying to hold 370 to 400 watts where I could. That's just a rough target to keep pushing through. The climb, not particularly picturesque as you can see, but it's interesting and I'm quite enjoying just doing something a little bit different. This is only sort of 25-30 miles from my house. It's not a far-flung climb that I'll never do again. It's just, as I say quite often, we're spoilt with an absolute glut of climbs of this kind of magnitude around here, so much that no one could possibly know all of them. I don't think they're just everywhere. So even within what I would call the continuous climb section, you can see that there's pitches, and we come over a relatively steep section just to do false flat, 2 to 5% for quite a while, and I'm trying to persuade myself to keep the power on, but inherently it's not going to be kind of 400 watts. I guess, please let me know if you're a top hill climber and you reckon you can flat pace if something's 12 to 13% and then goes down to 2%, if you think you can keep rolling at, I don't know, 105% of FTP over them. I'd love to know what your strategy is. For me at the moment, I'm happy if I can go over threshold on the steep bits and maintain at threshold on the flatter bits. That's progress, and I'm feeling quite positive about how I've done. Absolutely gutted to bump into a car here. I've got no idea why he beeped me though. What are we supposed to do? There's no passing points, it's narrow, he stopped, I slowed down, and I squeezed through the gap. I really haven't done anything wrong. I didn't take this kind of sharp chicane very well. I mean, they're very tight, and as you can see, visibility is particularly poor. So my power did drop a fair bit, but not that I was going for a KOM or anything. I'm really not in that shape, and I think it's disrespectful to the people who are in the top 10 to pretend that I think I could compete with them at the moment. But if you compare my pacing up here versus the KOM holder, I lose loads of time on that corner. I really didn't take it especially well. But on the other hand, interesting, like last week, breaks up the climb a little bit. And I quite like these really steep-sided, almost like cuttings of roads that you climb through. It's not far off being like a tunnel, is it? But it gives you a perception of speed that if you're on a really, really open road, you don't get. You feel like you're going nowhere. But when you got the wall right up close to you, it gives you a really good perception of speed. So this bit got really challenging. It's properly steep. I think, is my gradient saying 29% there? That's got to be nonsense. But I would believe 20 if you told me. I'm in my smallest gear, which is a 34-28, and I'm out the saddle, fully like mashing just to turn the pedals. 400 watts and 5 or 6 kilometers an hour is pretty steep. But in my head I was thinking, I know that the end of this first main climb is in sight, and this is my target, right? I'm still trying to say to myself, the finish line is the end of this first bit. It's hard mental games to try and persuade myself, because I know that's not the finish line, but I'm trying to really push on. And if you're looking at the little mini-map thing I've got on the left-hand side, it's where that very sharp 90-degree right turn is that this steep section ends, and that I'm calling myself happy with the achievement. You can see that the road gets wet and slippy here, and there were a couple of places where I did get some wheel spin on this climb, so once again, you do need to sit down. Last week I was blessed with pretty dry roads, and this week they're not so bad, but you still have to be a little bit careful, just thinking about your line, just thinking about balancing the weight of the bike if you're going to get out the saddle, etc. This van was behind me, and I must confess I was a bit of a selfish knob. I knew I was turning right at the top, so I didn't even try to let him past. I thought if he also turns right, I'll have to assess the situation, but if he turns left, there's no point me slowing down. I thought this was a main road I was going to turn onto, when in fact it is the same. So here you go, I'm 10th overall as a result of that effort up that little bit of climb, and you can see my pacing. Obviously I've had to drop the power where I've bumped into that car, not literally bumped into that car, and that cost me a good few seconds, but never mind. And I was shocked to learn that you turn this right-hander and it's not actually flat. I thought it was immediately flat and downhill, and even though in my head I'm saying I need to roll the power over and push through, I was hoping I could at least have a little bit of respite, like a 300 watts for a while, because it doesn't matter because it's downhill. But no, it's false flat. And actually that was quite good, because you can see that I've had to force a lot more power out, so I was still pushing up to 400 watts for a good amount of time there. That's around 6 watts per kilo for me. And I think the gradient's just a little bit behind. I think after I passed that man and his dog there, it was kind of flat-ish. And I'm not really happy with the power I'm pushing, but okay, I'd like to put out a bit more, but at least it's on a flat and a downhill that I'm getting myself up to speed. I'm still doing nearly 30 kilometers an hour as a result of pushing there, so that is good progress. I don't really like riding roads like this, if I'm honest with you. It's pretty boring. There's a lovely view to my right, but you can't see it. But it's just like hedges and a lane. It's the same reason I don't really like riding in Cheshire. Nothing to see, not particularly eventful. At least I get to go through a dairy farm. Very nice. But pretty crappy all in all. And just over here, catastrophe strikes. My chain, as I change up to my big ring for the descent, slips off on the outside, and I've had that happen a couple of times on this ride already, so I've just got to stop. There's nothing getting it back on. It's hooked around my pedal at this point, so there's no back pedaling or shifting that's going to get it back on. I'll talk over myself swearing because I think I'm quite liberal with the swear words on this channel, but calling my chain a C word repeatedly is probably not YouTube appropriate. So there you go, it's back on. I've pictured myself as a cyclocross rider who's had to, stop as an emergency, sling my leg back over and get down this descent. But like I say, Strava.com doesn't matter, but I knew that any chance I had at being competitive, if I had any, was not going to be helped by 20 seconds stopped completely still on a corner where you would want to be carrying speed through. Now this is the true descent section, and a bit like last week, I'm not too worried about rolling loads of speed through here. The point is sort of psychological cues of keep your power going till you're up to speed, not absolutely smash it and risk death. And you can see that for a descent I'm going pretty slowly, but it is a nice section of road just to enjoy. And I was quite impressed actually, having never ridden this whole section. I don't know if you can even call it a climb if it's got 10 turns in it, and you'll see it gets fiddlier as we go up. Is that a climb if it has loads and loads of different turns strung together in it? But I was enjoying the kind of feel of the road, the scenery and stuff. What I didn't realise is quite how steep this next little section is. So you drop down and it's to a little river valley. And these features come up quite often in the UK cycling. I don't know if they're so common elsewhere, that a road goes down to a river valley and straight up the other side. And because it's not very far and it's probably a farm lane, it's 20% down, it's 20% up, get on with it. I don't believe the Garmin stats that saying this is 4 or 5%, because this was maybe the hardest section of road I cycled all day. Doesn't help that the surface is terrible. And this is where this segment gets silly, because I've had to cross a main road, and that is a proper main road, to continue on this lane. So, times on segments where you have to cross a main road are immediately invalidated, in my opinion, because otherwise you're encouraging people to just blast headlong into traffic. It's pretty irresponsible. I was lucky with it though. Absolutely hold my hands up that I probably had a much better time crossing that main road than a lot of other people who've tried this segment. Now we're entering kind of the twilight days of this climb, but it gets very fiddly. Up here there's a right, then a left, then another right, or then another left, and so on and so forth. So it was just about pushing the power over where I can. Probably if I was aiming for speed, not training, there'd be different ways of doing this. Get up to speed quickly with spikes of power and then settle down, etc. But I decided not to do that. Just keep pushing up the 8-9% bits. I wanted to be seeing 320 plus watts. Like I say, the power's always a little bit out. Garmin Verb calibration moves you in 400 meter chunks, which on a climb is significant. The power I'm doing here is not the same as the power I'm doing at 400 meters time. So yeah, it does make it quite a bit out. And this is through a weird little hamlet called Dolphin. I don't know why it's called Dolphin, but it is. There's holiday parks and stuff, so maybe one of them was named Dolphin. And now I'm really focused on my Garmin navigation, so I had no idea what power I was doing. It was just like, mash the pedals, follow the navigation, and hope for the best. In the back of my mind as well, I was thinking it's pretty cruel to tell my dad that this is the hill that we're separating on when he doesn't have the route on his Garmin. And I've tried to explain to him, like, oh, it's like, 8 minutes up that first bit, then turn right, then turn left, then turn right again. And I was thinking, actually, I could do with finishing this pretty quickly and turning around and checking that he knows where he's going. We both know this section pretty well, so I told him to come to here. He'll recognise it, and I was just hoping that would be all right. So, as I approached the finish, I guess I should comment on how I was feeling up here. I was actually feeling surprisingly good. My right leg does this thing where it feels like it's cramping from my hip to my ankle quite often, and I've had, recurring issues with my glute and my knee. And even my ankle. I've got really poor ankle mobility on the right, and when I spend prolonged times over threshold, that's what starts to hurt. And that was happening, but it felt sustainable. And considering the sort of powers I've been managing to maintain, I was really happy that that felt sustainable, even though it hurt, which is a shame. Last week I complained that this bike hurts my knee, and all I did was tweak my saddle upwards slightly. It was at like minus 30 degrees or something stupid, like how do you sit on that? And it just happened by accident. I hadn't really realised, and it really didn't aggravate my knee as much this week, so that's great. And we're coming up to the top now, to a part of the world that I know very well, near Holywell Golf Course. It's lovely, top of the hill line of the Hulkins, and I was thinking I need to just push the power down, but I was really struggling to get anything out at this point, so it was just a case of whatever I can manage, let's go. I'd really love, if I do compete in the hill climb season this year, to be one of those people who actually has something for a final push. As you're coming into the finishing straight, someone who actually gets out the saddle and looks like they're putting down more effort than ever. But I'm not. I'm like a soggy, damp squib finisher. I just sort of sit and spin. This bit was cruel. 10% with a cattle grid on it. But this is the top now. This is the line. No panoramic views on this climb, I'm afraid. But I did really enjoy doing it. So I'm probably going to build it in future. Here I am with the green grass of home over my shoulder. Let me know what you made of that. If I hadn't dropped my chain, it would have been better. The climb itself is lovely though, I thought. Very hard. Quite picturesque in a non-scenic way, if that makes sense. But a real good challenge. A few pitches where I had to really focus to keep it on. But I'm happy. Time to go back and find my dad. So final results, a decent time, what was that, 15:30, and power 315 watts for that duration, with descents in it to average 315 watts. I'm really happy with. There's the analysis for those of you who are interested, Marco. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this random hill near Bagillt in North Wales. Unfortunately, I think there'll be a few more weeks of just this sort of climb video, just because of life and weather and stuff. I'm not getting out to do any ride interesting enough to make a full sort of video about, but I am on each and every ride trying to do an interesting different hill. So if you enjoy seeing the out and out hill climbs, do let me know if you want me to get back to doing more adventure style videos as soon as possible. I will try my best. I'm still really enjoying these rides. It's just like when they're all the same roads near my house, there's not loads to show off. So yeah, thank you for watching. Cheers, guys.